Hi! Welcome to Inference. In this video, I will be talking about inflation. Inflation is an economic concept that refers to the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services is rising, and subsequently, purchasing power is falling. Central banks and governments use various monetary and fiscal policies to try to control inflation. There are several different measures of inflation, the most common of which is the Consumer Price Index, CPI. The CPI measures the average price change for a basket of goods and services consumed by a typical household. Other measures of inflation include the Producer Price Index, PPI, which measures the average change in prices received by domestic producers for their output, and the Personal Consumption Expenditures, PCE, Price Index, which is calculated using data from the Bureau of Economic Analysis and is considered by many economists to be a more accurate measure of inflation than the CPI. In general, low and stable inflation is considered to be good for an economy, as it allows individuals and businesses to make more accurate predictions about future price changes, which in turn allows them to make better decisions about spending, saving, and investing. High inflation, on the other hand, can create uncertainty and make it more difficult for businesses to plan for the future, which can slow economic growth. Many factors can contribute to inflation, including an increase in the money supply, a decline in the value of a country's currency, an increase in government spending, and a rise in the cost of production due to rising wages, raw materials costs, or other factors. It is important to note that there is some inflation rate that is considered healthy for the economy, usually around 2 to 3% PA, but that varies depending on the context. As a rule of thumb for central banks, keeping inflation low is a key target for monetary policy. Several assets are often considered to be good hedges against inflation. These include real assets. Real assets such as real estate, precious metals like gold, and agricultural land tend to retain their value during periods of inflation, as their prices tend to rise in response to an increase in the general price level. Bonds with inflation protection. Some bonds, such as Treasury inflation-protected securities, TIPS, are specifically designed to protect investors against inflation by adjusting their interest payments in response to changes in the Consumer Price Index, CPI. Commodities. Commodities such as oil, wheat, and other natural resources tend to be a good hedge against inflation, as their prices tend to rise when the general price level increases. Equity shares in firms with pricing power. Companies that can increase prices without losing too much market share, such as those in the utilities, healthcare, and consumer staples sectors, are considered good investments during inflationary times. Foreign currency. Some investors may also consider holding foreign currencies, particularly those that are expected to appreciate relative to the investor's domestic currency. This can help to offset the effects of inflation on purchasing power. It is important to note that investing in any of these assets doesn't give a guarantee of inflation protection. It all depends on how much exposure to those assets you have and what is the overall market condition. Diversifying the investment portfolio and constant monitoring of the market and economies can help in reducing the impact of inflation on the portfolio. The question of whether a national currency should be backed by a precious metal, such as gold, is a complex one with arguments on both sides. Here are some of the main pros and cons of a gold standard. Pros. Price stability. One of the main arguments in favor of a gold standard is that it can help to stabilize the value of a currency by linking it to a tangible and relatively scarce asset, like gold. This can help to reduce inflation and currency devaluation. Reduced monetary policy discretion. A gold standard can also limit the ability of a central bank to manipulate the money supply, which can help to prevent inflationary monetary policies. International stability. A gold standard can also help to promote international stability by linking the currencies of different countries to a common standard, which can facilitate cross-border trade and investment. Cons. Lack of flexibility. One of the main arguments against a gold standard is that it can limit the ability of a central bank to respond to changes in economic conditions. For example, a gold standard can make it difficult for a central bank to increase the money supply to stimulate economic growth during a recession. Reduced economic growth. The argument states that having the currency tied to a precious metal limit the ability of the central bank to use monetary policy tools to achieve full employment and steady economic growth. A limited supply of gold. The supply of gold is limited and the demand for it can fluctuate widely, which can lead to volatility in the value of the currency and can make it difficult for a country to maintain a stable currency value. Dislocation of gold mining. A gold standard would likely lead to an increase in gold mining, which can be harmful to the environment and can have negative social and economic consequences. It is important to note that the gold standard system has been abandoned by most countries a long time ago, and today most countries have a fiat currency, which is not backed by any physical assets. The modern monetary system is based on a system of trust, where people trust that their government will continue to accept their currency in exchange for goods and services. In conclusion, the question of whether a national currency should be backed by a precious metal, such as gold, is a complex one with arguments on both sides. On one hand, a gold standard can help to stabilize the value of a currency by linking it to a tangible and relatively scarce asset, like gold. This can help to reduce inflation and currency devaluation. On the other hand, a gold standard can limit the ability of a central bank to respond to changes in economic conditions and promote full employment and steady economic growth. It can also be difficult for a country to maintain a stable currency value, which may lead to negative social and economic consequences. Most countries today have a fiat currency, which is not backed by any physical assets. The modern monetary system is based on a system of trust, where people trust that their government will continue to accept their currency in exchange for goods and services. Central banks use different monetary policies to control inflation and manage the economy, while the government and central banks need to work in harmony to keep the economy stable. Alright, folks, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new about inflation. Thank you for watching. Have a good one. Goodbye.